tell from the title of the video, I have returned to the very first country and city I have visited outside of the US, and that is Toronto, Canada. So, this is the country that sparked my interest to travel outside of the US. And you're probably wondering to yourself, out of all places to travel to, why did I choose Canada? Why Toronto, Canada? So, I'm going to get into detail of the reason why. Like I mentioned before, I had no intentions of coming to Toronto, Canada, but it all started of me and some friends talking in the gym about our previous trips to New York to the Puerto Rican Day Parade and to Miami to Memorial Day weekend. And a guy in the gym overheard us talking so much about these two places, and he came up to me. He said that I'm like 100% certain that you'll probably enjoy Carabana more than any of the events you probably visited here in the US. And I took him up on that offer, so I made a bet. I told him, come with us to Miami to Memorial Day weekend, and I'll come with you to Carabana. And it all started from that. And if you lost or wondering what is Carabana, basically Carabana is a Caribbean festival that is held yearly in Toronto, Canada. So you have all these people from different parts of Canada and around the world that travel to Toronto.
Nous demande de nous arrêter très bientôt. S'il vous plaît, restez assis avec votre ceinture de sécurité bouclée. Une fois que vous êtes dans le système de ceinture sécuritaire de vous lever. Merci encore. À bientôt.
Could be worse.
As you can see, during the winter months, Canada gets very cold, especially on the East Coast. So if you do plan to visit Toronto, Quebec, Montreal, just remember you're going to see snow and cold weather. So I would suggest coming during the summer months when it's much more hot, pleasant, and you will want to see the city more versus the winter months, which is very cold, gray skies, no sun. It's not as pleasant. Now back to my story. So my friends, we all agreed to take him up on the offer of going to Toronto, Canada. But first came May, which is Memorial Day weekend in Miami. So we all drove to Miami. Me and my friends, we were used to it because this was not our first time going to Miami. So once we got there, I was looking to see how excited he was to be at this event. And when it was all over with, when we was coming back home, he said again, you all will have much more fun if you visit Toronto, Canada for Carabana. So when the time came, it was only myself because my friends had different reasons for not wanting to come, or they couldn't come because of work or what have you. So it ended up being just me going along with this guy and his friend. So it was a total of us three driving to Toronto, Canada. Now, they had made this drive many, many times. Now, mind you, this guy and his friend could be like my dad or granddad. I'm in my late teens, so they had been traveling to different parts of Canada. I think I overheard them say for like over 15 years at that time. So they had many stories to share. So I'm just in the back seat listening to all their prior stories of their first time visiting Canada and visiting different provinces in Canada besides Toronto. And I'm just amazed about how much fun they had. Just listening to their stories made it seem like I already know that it's going to be more fun than any event I had attended in the US. And I remember it just like it was yesterday. Once we got to the border, The guy asked him, for his driver's license. He showed his driver's license. Then he asked him, "What is your intended purpose?" He said, "Carabana." They asked him, "Where is he staying in Toronto?" He said that. And he asked me a question. He was like, "Who is this guy to you?" And I said, "This is my friend." And I had, "What's his name?" I said his name. And they just let us go. We just drove right through. It took probably less than, 2 minutes. And then after that, after the border, we drove into Toronto, Canada. And before you know it, it was there. It was downtown. When we arrived in Toronto, it was a Friday night. It was real late. And also, mind you, this guy's totally opposite of me. When it comes to traveling and food, money is not my concern. I want to get the best of the best. It's about location. I'm not trying to cut corners when it comes to finding a place to stay and when it comes to food. This guy is totally opposite. He's very cheap. So the hotel we stayed in near downtown was behind Dundas Square. I don't know if they're still there, but behind Dundas Square is projects. And our hotel was like walking distance to one of these projects behind Dundas Square. I'll actually show you Dundas Square in a few minutes. But back to this guy, yes, it was very super cheap. So the hotel, the inside was horrific. It was not that great. The surrounding area, it didn't seem that great. Like I said, it was projects with walking distance. The only good thing about this hotel was that it was not far from Dundas Square. And right across the street from Dundas Square is the Eaton Center. The Eaton Center is one of the malls in the downtown area of Toronto. So we was not far away from those two things. So that was a plus. Other than that, the hotel sucked. Also, once we settled in, it was a blackout that lasted for like 3 or 4 hours. So that was a disappointment as well. So me at this point, experiencing a blackout, my first time in Canada, I was not really feeling Canada. I didn't really like it. I had felt that I made a bad decision on coming here. But when it was time to actually go to the Carabana parade, things changed. I was like, wow, they're right. This event is way better than any event I attended in the US, much better than the Puerto Rican Day Parade in New York, way better than Memorial Day weekend in Miami. I was like, yeah, I got to come back to Toronto. I was already thinking this in my head. And they were telling me, see, I told you this is much better. So they were right. And after the Carabana parade, we went to the Eaton Center. And inside the Eaton Center, some of the same people I saw in costumes at the parade was actually in the mall in their costumes. So again, I'm like, wow. I have many Eaton Center stories. I actually met my ex in the Eaton Center, but one memorable story in the Eaton Center was when I first went there, my first time in the mall. I'm going downstairs to the food court, me and my friends, and this girl out of nowhere, she grabs me. And when I turn around and look at her, I'm like, who is she? I don't know her. The way she grabbed me. And I'm like, hello, what's your name? She doesn't say anything. She smiles and she looks at me and she looks at my lips. And I'm like, well, I'm here on vacation. What's your number? Can I call you? She don't say anything. She looks at me. She's smiling. And then her friend gives her a pen and paper, and she writes something down. She gives it to me. I look at it. It's an email address. So I'm like in my head, like, what the fuck? Why she give me an email address? I'm like, all right, well, I see you around. And as we walk off, I have to look back. So I wait a few minutes, then I look back and I see her and her friend. They're signing. So she was deaf. So the whole time she was probably reading my lips. That's the reason why she was staring at me so hard. Probably because she was trying to read what I was saying. But that was interesting. Also, the street you're seeing is near the Eaton Center. So Young Street is the street that most of the people that attend Carabana they're on. So this long street is just filled with people during the day, at night, just walking up and down the street nonstop. It doesn't stop. And you will meet, different people. And one person that I met also that I would not forget would be the first person that would be from a country that I would visit later on throughout my travels, which is Guyana. I met a young lady. She said she was from Guyana. At the time, I didn't know where Guyana was at. At the time, I didn't ask her exactly where Guyana was located. I didn't want to make it seem like I didn't know, in which I really didn't know. But at first, I was thinking that Guyana was a different province of Ontario. So I thought it was probably somewhere in Canada, somewhere at the moment. So visiting Canada my first time as a late teenager opened me up to other cultures that I have not met when I was back home in the US, because in the US I was more knowledgeable of people from Central America countries and also from East Africa, like Ethiopia, because in Washington, D.C., that is the makeup of our population. We have a high percentage of Central Americans and also Ethiopians, which is East African. So anything outside of that is like fairly new to me. And probably that's the reason why I did at the time liked Miami, because it was so much of a mix that was different from the Washington D.C. area. But coming to Toronto, Canada was just even a more bigger experience. So it just opened me up even more to witness different cultures that I had not witnessed already. And after meeting some of his friends, which were from mostly the Caribbean countries, Barbados and Jamaica, we would all meet up. We would go to the Eaton Center together. We talk, bullshit around, and it was fun. And some of his friends would take us back to where they live in different parts of Toronto. Up until this day, I still have some of the same friends that I met my first time coming here to Toronto, Canada, up until this day. So Toronto, Canada holds a special place with me because this was the very first country that I visited. Also, this was the country that made me want to travel the world and see even more. So it all started here in Toronto, Canada. Even though I don't come to Toronto as much as I used to do, still Toronto holds a special place with me when it comes to traveling. And what you're seeing right now is the place I was talking about, the Eaton Center. And right here is Dundas Square. Now, behind Dundas Square is what I was talking about. There's projects, and we actually stayed near one my very first time visiting here in Toronto. When you come to this area, it reminds you of the Times Square area in New York City. It gives you that type of vibe, all the bright lights and tall buildings. And since my first trip to Toronto, of course, things have changed. It does not still look the same. Lots of things have changed here in Toronto. But my last time visiting Toronto was actually the last time when I visited Guyana. Because when I visited Guyana, I had to lay over here in Toronto for like a long time. So I did get a chance to see the city then. So that was actually my last time. I don't know when I went to Guyana. I would have to go back to that video and see. But it's been a while. Now, after my first time coming to Toronto, Canada, I came again during the winter month. And I got a chance to experience how cold it gets in Toronto. Then after that, I came a few more times with my friend. And then, because by that time I knew how to get to Toronto by myself, so I would actually drive by myself to Toronto, Canada. And this is the very first hotel I stayed in, Chelsea Hotel. It's maybe 2 or 3 blocks away from the Eaton Center, which is about, I don't know, less than probably 15 minutes walking. So this hotel brings back memories, but the funny thing is, it still looks the same. Nothing in this hotel has changed. So my hotel room is all the way at the end by the fire escape, and we're gonna take a look into it. I mean, nothing has changed with this hotel. I've stayed in many hotels around the area of the Eaton Center, and I can say like this hotel still looks the same. It's funny. So once we get inside, we will see the layout of the hotel. It's nothing spectacular. It's just a regular hotel, but the location is great. Like I mentioned before, nothing is spectacular about this hotel room, but the location of this hotel is just perfect. It's not very far away from the Eaton Center. And in between, there's lots of restaurants on the way there, walking there. And there's also lots of restaurants inside of the Eaton Center. So you can't go wrong with this hotel. And the price is not cheap. So you get what you pay for. But other than that, the furniture and just the look of everything inside the hotel still looks like I'm back in the early 2000s. But other than that, like I said, location is very important to me. I had to check my email to make certain when was the last time I visited Toronto, and the last time was in 2018. I just typed in Guyana, and when I typed in Guyana, I saw a hotel that I reserved back in 2018. So that's when I laid over here for a short stay. I don't know when I uploaded the video, but 2018 was the time that I was here in Toronto and I went to Guyana. Now, the last time I came here, I did notice that right next to this hotel was a food spot that had like three different restaurants that I had never seen before when I first visited Toronto in 2000. So, my last trip in 2018, I did go to these restaurants. I think one is like an Egyptian style restaurant. Then there's another one was like a Jamaican style. And next to that was, I think, if I recall, a bubble tea place. So I'm about to recheck these places out, get something to eat because this was a late night flight. So I'm about to eat and get some rest. So I got my food. Also, what I got is I have finally a new MacBook, and things are much smoother now because when I was in Brazil, I had lots of problems when it came to uploading videos. And this is my mouse, so it's pretty cool. New laptop, new mouse. Late night, this was what I was able to get. As you saw, it was not very far from my hotel. Basically, this is fries and some type of chicken sandwich. So this will do for now. It is the next day, so what I'm about to do now is take you along with this walk to the Eaton Center. And like I said, it's not very far. My hotel is on Young Street, and on Young Street also is right here, Dundas Square, and across from that is the Eaton Center.
Capitalism, socialism, it doesn't matter. Every single one of those systems obey, in many respects, God's 10 Commandments. And so, my friend, I want us to understand that this God
Back in 2000, this mall was not as gigantic as it is now. So if you're from the Toronto, Ontario area, when did this mall begin to expand? Because it's gigantic now. And of course, now because of Drake, he has his own OVO store inside of the mall. And when I first started coming to Toronto, of course, there was no Drake. And to me, it was much more fun to come to the event of Caravana because it was very few Americans that I had seen there. And because of Drake, now the event is blowing up. And I think they combined it with OVO Fest and Caravana.
is Jesus. His name is a strong tower, and the righteous run into it and are saved. You want to be saved? Accept him as Lord and Savior. And now I want to share with you, my friend. I want to share with you so that you may be prepared. I want you to know that there is a time in our future when I'm coming with our beats. Or you know what real science is? Real science is testable, repeatable, verifiable.
I don't know if you noticed when I was walking along, but I passed a few cannabis stores. So cannabis or weed is legal in Canada. When I first visited, it was not. So lots of things have changed in Toronto, in Canada in general. To go back what I was talking about when I was at the mall of the OVO Fest and Caravana, what they did is they merged the two together because his name is more popular than Caravana. You say Caravana outside of Canada, maybe not a lot of people know, but if you say Drake and OVO Fest, everyone knows who that is. That was a very strategic idea because, again, it brings more money to the city. But in my opinion, I had much more fun before Drake, before there was OVO Fest, when it was just Caravana and that was it. Maybe because it was less known. So to me, it was like I had found like the hidden treasure and no one knew about it. But now, lots more people know about Caravana, which is a good thing. So you can't be mad at that. But from what I recall, my first time visiting Toronto for Caravana, the only people that really promoted it on the US side, if I recall, was Hot 97. They would promote it on their radio station, on their website, because they would actually attend the event and host different parties at different clubs within the city. So now I feel like the person that introduced me to Canada, when he would always talk about the good old days in Canada, that's how I feel now. I feel like when I first went back in the good old days, because now it's totally different. When I used to drive to Toronto, Canada, people would know that I'm not from Canada because I would drive there. They would just look at my license plates and it says Washington, D.C. So that right there was also a attention grabber once they see my license plates. Also, within the city, sometimes you would have cops that, stop you because of your license plates. They want to know why you're there. Even though you already entered the border and you're in the city, still, you would get sometimes cops that would just, harass you and wonder why you're here. Other than that, it was not a major issue. But with my friend, he had prior stories that he had problems with the police, mainly because of his car. He had an older 600 Mercedes Benz, so it's the big body style. I don't know if you ever seen the Ice-T MTV Cribs video when he had his Mercedes. Well, my friend had that same exact type of Mercedes. Also, with his license plates not reading Ontario, Canada, I guess would raise like suspicion with the police sometimes, and they would pull him over. Also, with him, I didn't find out later on until my first visit, is that he was a dancer on one of BET's popular dance shows. And I don't know how in Canada they was able to get BET, because I know at the time they had Much Music, which is like a BET, and of course they had MTV Canada, but they were able to get BET and people would notice him, and he would get treated like a celebrity when it came to like going to different clubs. And mind you, he had been coming to Canada for years, and he had been on this dance show on BET for years. So places that we went and people noticed him, we got VIP status. So again, some clubs we paid for, some clubs we didn't have to pay for because of him. So from that, I realized that that was one of his reasons why he loved Canada so much, is because of his experience here is way different than the experience that he got in his own country. I'm pretty sure that people noticed him in the US, but the love he got from outside of visiting the US in a different country and still getting that same kind of love was totally different. And I could see that's why he liked Canada so much, and that's why he went so many times visiting Canada throughout the years. Also, I'm pretty sure back then it was the money conversion, the US dollar to the Canadian dollar, because he had been coming to Canada over a decade before I had met him. So I'm pretty sure that the dollar was way much more stronger. I went and got some jerk chicken, and along with this, I got this drink right here to the side. And I was told that this is a popular Jamaican drink. And the flavor, the taste of this drink is like a sweet but spicy flavor. It's kind of hard to explain, but I'm pretty sure if you had this or if you're from Jamaica, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's very good. I wanted to get two, matter of fact. But we're coming to the end of my video. So this video is the explanation of why I visited Toronto, and Toronto, Canada being the first country I visited outside of my own country of the US. Hope you liked the video. If you did like the video, leave any kind of comments, and that's it. So peace out.